Kristen studied psychology and physical therapy, and she has completed her manual therapy certification through evidence in motion. Maria studied exercise physiology and physical therapy. They both primarily work with the Parkinson's population. Welcome, Kristen and Maria.
Go ahead, Maria.
Okay, I was going to ask if I'm live. I thought the screen switched, so I wasn't sure. So thank you so much for the introduction. So I'm Maria, and I'm a physical therapist at the Neuroscience group, and my colleague, Kristen, who will be presenting after me. We're here to kind of talk with you guys about fall prevention and exercise ideas. This is definitely a weird setup. I wish I could be seeing all your faces because I like to have audience interaction, but I guess thankful for technology that we can still do stuff like this. So I'll be talking about fall prevention. If there's questions, I think there's a Q&A session at the end of our presentation. So feel free to ask. And yeah, we'll go from there. So a couple questions. So being a physical therapist, we work with patients with Parkinson's and then also just any other things that either people are falling or having issues at home. So this is a big population that we see with, or an issue that we see with a lot of people. And our goal is to always help try to prevent falls and work with people on, not only exercise, but also ideas at home and educating people on how we can prevent falls from happening again, or just get their home environment set up in the safest way possible. So things that we often ask people, if anyone has ever fallen in the audience, things that we think about, do you know why you fell? Was it, you were dizzy? Was it you tripped over something? Or it just happened and you don't know? Another common thing is, are you afraid of falling again? This is very common. Unfortunately, once we fall, a fear develops in us because we obviously don't want that scenario to happen again. But even that fear of falling can actually increase our chances of falling again. And then did you do anything to change or reduce the chances of falling again at home? Did you change anything at home? Things like that. So things to think about, and you guys can ponder as we're going through this. And then we'll talk about suggestions for that. So as many people, even though people think this is true, falls are not a normal part of aging. I don't know how many people have come in and have seen us in clinic and said, oh, well, it's just I'm getting older or things like that. That's not a normal part of aging. We want to prevent those as much as possible. We want to keep you as mobile as possible without the risk of falls. And a lot of times they occur because a combination of factors. So normally I would ask the audience, how do you reduce or prevent falls? But that'll be something that we'll talk about as we go. So a couple statistics, and I know these are scary, not just because it's Halloween almost, but it's reality too. And this is, we don't want to scare our patients, but we just want to make people aware. So falls are the leading cause of accidental death for people over 65. An older adult falls every 11 seconds, which is just kind of crazy to think about. They're the most common cause of ER visits, and every 19 minutes, an older adult dies from a fall or a related injury. So you fall and then end up fracturing a hip, or end up, something ends up happening that the fall unfortunately expedited that process. So not fun things to think about, but certainly reality. And this is why, again, we emphasize it so much about safety and what can we do in our life to prevent these as much as possible. Other statistics are seniors who fall are 2 to 3 times more likely to fall again. And then 50% of those who fear falling limit or exclude social or physical activity. So to that point, a lot of times we'll see someone has had a fall, and then again, what happens is we develop that fear of falling again. We certainly don't want, we don't move as confidently. A lot of times people shorten their steps. They're afraid to do different things, and then they're not going out. They're not going. I know now with the pandemic happening, that's changed a lot of things, but still people aren't doing the social activities that they used to do, or even getting outside in their yard like they used to enjoy, or gardening or different things, which then we don't like either, because again, we want to keep people safe, but we want to keep people functional and doing things that they love, and keeping people involved as well, because that's a really important part of our life. But how do we do it safely? So most falls in the home occur during the day, between 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. So typically when people are just up and about doing their normal activities, and only 20% really occur between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. So like those early, either late at night or early mornings, getting up to go to the bathroom, whether it's dark or things like that. But majority of them do occur during the day when people are up and about. So a couple fall hazards at home that are really common, slippery surfaces. So in the picture, you can kind of see, obviously stairs, but, they have hardwood. I think about a lot of people who wear socks going downstairs like this, and just, you misstep once and boom, you slip all the way down. I've had that happen to myself when I was younger. So it can definitely happen. Obstacles in the house, we think about, a lot of times throw rugs. I know we like to have our rugs because they're nice on our feet, but they're definitely, they can be a hazard, because if you don't pick up your foot enough, all of a sudden you find yourself, your foot is getting caught on the rug, and then down you're going. But even other things, pets can sometimes be an obstacle. It's something you have to maneuver around, or even, things on the floor, furniture, different things like that. Poor lighting, particularly at night or early mornings. We rely a lot on our vision for balance and fall prevention. So if the lighting isn't great, if we're not able to see as much as ahead of us and things like that, that can impair our balance and increase our risk of falling. Another big one is reaching or climbing. I know a lot of us want to get to that top shelf of our cupboard, or cleaning things out, and oftentimes we pull up a chair and stand on it and try to reach or climb up. It's just a lot of times those are not the most stable options, and we want to get what we want now and not have to wait for someone else to help. So those can be common fall hazards as well. And then, like I briefly touched on, steps and stairs. Either we're just not paying attention, things are in our arms, or, in the picture, the slippery steps are just not a good combination. So a couple, there's what we call internal and external risk factors for falls. So internal risk factors, again, normal aging causes changes in hearing, in vision, bone density, reflexes, balance, coordination, and strength, which definitely, puts us more, we just have to be more aware. Yes, our balance may not be as good, or like I said, we rely a lot on vision for our balance. So we may have to pay a little bit more attention than we did 20 years ago. Things like that we can't necessarily alter, but if we're aware of it, if you're aware of those changes, again, you just adjust accordingly, and it may take you a little bit longer to do the activity, or, you may have to adapt in what you're trying to do, whether, again, if you're trying to reach the top cupboard or things like that. But these are things that we can work with too, and just being more aware, and how can we adjust our day-to-day life to incorporate these without falling. Diseases such as Parkinson's, macular degeneration, diabetes, heart disease, arthritis, and stroke can all influence these areas as well. So then there's also external risk factors. So medications, there are a fair amount of medications that have blood pressure side effects, which can also alter blood pressure when people go from sitting to standing, or laying down to sitting up, or quick changes in movements that, when the blood pressure drops, it makes us feel lightheaded, dizzy, and can cause a fall. Other medications can just increase our risk for falls. Alcohol certainly can increase risk for falls as well. If there's any sort of impairment in our balance system, that can certainly affect or increase our risk of fall. And then also environmental hazards, like we kind of talked about before, different obstacles, surfaces, things in your house, things like that, could we adjust those, and can we make those different or modify to try to reduce the risk of falls. So like I talked about, medications that can increase the fall risk. I mean, I know you see the list: blood pressure pills, heart medications, water pills or diuretics. It changes the fluid, which can changes your blood pressure, which then can result in again, dizziness, lightheadedness, things like that. Muscle relaxers have a tendency to make people, not always, but can make people tired or a little sleepy or almost a little foggy type feeling. And also pain medications as well. So important thing is have your medications reviewed by your doctor, including over-the-counter medications. I know we don't often think about that, but medications often interact with each other. So it's a lot of times those interactions that it may not be the one medication that, you're thinking of, may not have the side effect of, dizziness or increasing falls or blood pressure changes, but it's one that interacts with another medication that's where sometimes the problem can lie. Be mindful when changing a dose of medication or when starting a new medication, and then just monitor for side effects. I often, discuss with my patients if they have noticed an increase or a new pattern of falls or imbalance or things like that. I ask a lot about, have you tried, are you on any new medications? Are you, what in your life, is there anything that has changed from medication, from a dietary, from, any standpoint like that we can kind of hone in on to see, is it something more than just, okay, maybe there was a balance issue or something like that. So what can we do to help ourselves? As I mentioned before, as a physical therapist, we do not want to restrict activities. Like, I really try to never be a therapist that says, oh, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. However, I do encourage people, you need to think and know about activities that could put you at risk, that could increase your risk. A lot of times I work with my patients and say, okay, I know you want to accomplish this. So how can you still accomplish it and be a part of it? And we can keep your independence, but how can we modify that? Maybe we need, maybe I know 20 years ago, you used to be able to do this by yourself, but how can, maybe we need to have, a family member come over to help or things like that, because you're still able to do it, but instead of putting yourself at risk and end up potentially hurting yourself, and then you're not able to do any other things that you wanted to do, or can we modify it and still have you be a part of the task or the activity, but do it a little bit safer. We want you to participate in healthy activity and regular exercise. I mean, inactivity itself can increase fall risk. I know it's easy to say that, and it's hard now, certainly living in Wisconsin as the winter approaches, and unfortunately being, in a pandemic currently, we're not able to really go out as much as we used to or do those things. But there's a lot of stuff you can do at home. You just have to be creative. Honestly, the hardest thing, I think, and including for myself, is finding motivation to do it. But Kristen, when she presents later, will give you some good ideas of exercises you can do at home. And sometimes I tell people, I want you to, we have to figure out what motivates you to be able to do those things. If it's, for me, I like crossing off lists. So sometimes if I have a list and that crossing off the activity once I do it in itself can motivate me enough. Now, that may not be everyone, but sometimes set a goal and figure out what do you want to do. And again, the biggest thing is you can do it, but just definitely having the motivation to be able to do it is it can be tough. And I'll be honest, even within myself. And then managing chronic diseases, certainly, working with us, working with your doctor, things like that, to make sure medications are good, overall health is maintained as well. So a couple tips to help with posture. So You can kind of see in the diagram a couple different, what we consider poor posture and good posture. And as much as we've harped on posture our whole lives, aside from just having good upright posture to look taller and thinner and all those things, it is really, it's important because, as you can see in the middle of the diagram, the good posture, that dotted line in the middle is what we call the line of gravity. And if that line of gravity really goes directly through your ear, by your shoulder, your hip, and your ankle, it's actually really, not only for balance, but even for spine health, for pain, all of those things can dramatically reduce if we maintain or just think of a good posture. We're not saying, again, I'm going to speak for myself. I'd love to say that I had good posture all the time, and I don't. But just being aware of our posture can really help us have improved balance, have better spine health, which then again, if your back isn't as painful, you're more likely to walk more, to be more active, things like that, which is also going to reduce fall risk. So a couple things. Keep your chin parallel to the floor. Don't look down. Try to keep your eyes at eye level. And this is also important, not only for head position, but one of the things with balance and falls is we're trying to have people look ahead and almost be scanning instead of looking directly down at your feet, because we need to be able to anticipate too, again, scanning ahead of us to see, do we have obstacles ahead of us, and things like that, and be able to prepare our body for those. Keep your feet shoulder width apart, not that narrow base of support, the shoulders back, chest up, and keep your hands free, allowing your hands to, your arms to swing when you walk, things like that. So a couple tips to prevent falls when walking. Try not to move too quickly. Just be thinking, especially I see this commonly when people first get up from a sitting position, is they get up and start moving, and then again, blood pressure catches up, and all of a sudden their feet aren't moving as fast as their body and brain wants to move, and that's where falls can occur. So just stand up and then gather yourself. A lot of times I tell people, and then start to move. Try to walk with the heel to toe pattern. A lot of times, again, what happens when we fall is our brain just naturally wants to protect us. We certainly don't want to fall again. So we have a tendency, and I know you can't see my feet, but to shuffle our feet on the floor, because that's our brain's ability to adapt. Or your brain thinks, okay, if I just keep my feet on the floor, really as close to the floor as possible, that's going to help me prevent, me from falling as much as possible. And it's going to keep me grounded. It's going to keep me there. However, that's actually a misconception. We want to do the heel toe pattern, because what happens when we shuffle is we're much more often, or much more common, to get our foot caught on, even just, I think about like going between carpet and tile or different things. That's when our feet can catch and cause a fall. Don't pivot over your body. Move feet with your body. Again, not when you're trying to move your feet as you're also moving your body, not just, standing in place and turning your body, and then all of a sudden your feet are stuck and boom, you're down on the ground. Never lean far forward over your feet. Again, that's where the good posture comes in, because as we kind of lean forward, our center, our gravity is a much stronger force than we give it credit for sometimes. And as we're leaning far forward, it's hard to stop ourselves from, as that perpetuates, it's hard to stop ourselves from falling. If you start to shuffle, try to come to a complete stop. Take a deep breath and start again. A common thing that I use with my patients is, if we start to get that shuffly pattern, I have them stop, and then I almost have them, you don't have to march, like bring your knees all the way up, but just do little steps in place and then start to walk, because sometimes you just need a reboot and to develop that confidence in yourself that you can do this, that you can walk. But it's scary. It's scary when you've had those instances. Avoid walking backwards. Take side steps to turn around. It's just a lot easier. Again, you can see what's behind you. And then keep your hands free. Do not carry things when walking, like we kind of talked about before. So a couple risky activities. Again, as I mentioned, standing on a chair to reach onto that top shelf. I'm sure we're all guilty of it. However, not the safest choice. So I'm just going to go back to that slide. What can happen? I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen. Not only is she standing on her tiptoes, the chair can slide out. There's just a lot of issues with this. Again, it seems good in the moment because it's the easiest way to get something down. However, to me, is it worth getting, injured over, how can we modify this? And that's where I talk about with people home setups. Okay, I know for storage purposes, sometimes you have to put things way up high, but let's put the things, let's have family help with that. Let's put the things way up high that you rarely ever use, that you rarely need. And how can we plan if you need to get that down? Let's make a plan to figure out how to do it. Are we able to get help? Are we able to kind of figure out a tool that, you don't have to be climbing on a chair to be able to do that? And is it really worth it? Is that important to get up there? Other things, again, walking or rising up, getting out of the chair too quickly, bending down too fast, and then coming back up, and all of a sudden, again, that's typically a blood pressure thing, which we can't control. Other than what we can control is just slowing down a little bit and not moving that quickly. And if we have to, if we do, make sure you just take a moment and let your blood pressure kind of calm down. Hold on to, hopefully if you're near something, you can hold on to something or sit down and just take a break. Rushing to answer the door or the phone, again, the people ring your doorbell, they will wait. Like, you don't have to run over there. And the phone, if you miss a phone call, I always tell, if it's that important to leave a message, you can call them back. If you miss it, it's okay. Not using assistive devices. I know, it's common when, especially, people are going around their home and they don't, they furniture surf is what we call them. You like to use the walls and all, the chairs and all the things, but those aren't nearly as stable and safe as using either your cane or your walker, something that probably someone in the medical field has prescribed for you. Also not wearing your glasses, again, as I talked about the vision component, and not taking adequate time transitioning from different types of lighting or changing surfaces, things like that. So in regards to assistive devices, if you have been prescribed one, you should use it. It should be properly fitted and in good condition. And for some reason, if you don't know how to fit it, certainly ask. I mean, I can at least talk about it over, when we have the Q&A session, or can certainly stop in here sometime too, and we can go over that with you. Check periodically for the wearing trends on the rubber tips of the cane or the walker, things like that, because those can wear out and become slippery. And then you should not use other objects to substitute, such as an umbrella for a cane. It's not stable. That's not what it's meant to be used for. Things like that. Also, one thing in regards to this, especially since we're coming up on winter, they do make, and I know they do make little tips that you can put on the end of your cane that are actually little like ice grabbers, which again, if you have to be out and about, that can be a good option, because it can get scary walking on ice. Ice takes no prisoners, that's for sure. So just having one other extra piece can help sometimes. This is just some different types of equipment, particularly so what we see particularly sometimes in the Parkinson's population is difficulty with freezing gait. So again, what that means is where you just can't get those feet to move. You want to move, and all of a sudden things just freeze, or that small shuffly steps. So in the picture with the cane, there's a light so that's the laser cane. The idea behind that is it gives your brain an idea of where you have to, the object is to step, that's a guide for you to where to step. So it gives your brain a cue to say, okay, step here, things like that. And it's the same with the U-step walker. It has I don't know if you can really see, but it has a laser on the bottom that can activate to turn on to engage your brain. So those feet remember to do what they're supposed to do. And then the bottom pictures of the hurricane, super nice and convenient that you can, as you can see, it has like a 3-pronged base, but it's very stable, so it doesn't fall over. So whereas the other single point cane, you couldn't just let it stand in the middle of the grocery store unless you were magic and had some sort of, magical power to be able to do that. But this one is nice to be able to leave it if you need to, to reach for something and then go back, and you don't have to bend down to pick it up. Just a couple of things about vision and hearing. Get annual eye and ear exams. It's really important just to check to keep up on eyeglass prescriptions, keep your glasses clean, wear their glasses and hearing aids if they've been prescribed for you, and consider distance only glasses when walking if you have bifocals, because certainly sometimes the bifocal when walking can kind of confuse your eyes and your brain and make distance a little bit more difficult, and with stairs as well. In regards to shoes, supportive, flexible, and not too thick of a sole. A good fit and snug grip at the heel. Again, we don't want that heel popping off as you walk, because then a lot of times too, people find that their toes end up kind of gripping in the sock, which then their feet hurt, and then you're not able to walk well. Your body's so focused on keeping your shoes on that it just increases our risk for falls. Okay. A good sole that grips and has texture and is non-slip. Avoid open toe and especially open heel. Again, that's where a lot of times I see people, we want to wear, sandals that don't have a strap on the back for our heel, but what happens is our feet have a tendency to slip out. So our toes are grabbing on, and then we're not able to get that good normal walking pattern, which then just everything else goes downhill. Avoid ill-fitting slippers or floppy slippers, and watch for uneven wear on soles or treads that have become slippery. So home hazards, take inventory of each room in your home and surroundings. So, I do encourage people to do this. Go in each room, even though, you may think, well, I know exactly what's in there. I don't need to go check it out or go assess it. But sometimes just even a fresh look or a fresh set of eyes can be like, oh yeah, do you remember that you had this here? And thinking about, okay, how can we move this? Can we modify it? Again, I'm not saying take it all away, make it, because we want you to be comfortable in your home, but how can we make it safe? Again, majority of falls occur at home, and many falls can be prevented by taking a few steps. So again, normally I would engage the audience and ask them what they think is wrong with this picture, but since I can't, I'll just tell you, you get off easy today. So in this picture, these are stairs, which again, it's not a great picture either, but it's very dimly lit. Okay. It's almost like trying to go do the stairs in the dark. Not recommended. I don't think that's a just great idea in general. So having appropriate lighting is what would need to happen there. So make sure lighting is adequate, including hallways and especially stairways. Install light switch at both ends of the hallway and at top and bottom of the stairs. So that way, again, if you're at the bottom, you don't have to turn the light off and then go up the stairs in the dark. Okay. Use night lights, especially if in the bathroom and the bedroom, have a light easy to reach from the bed, or use motion sensitive lights. Those are great options as well. And then just be very aware when sudden change in when lighting occurs, because again, that affects our vision too. So if you're going from something really dark to really bright, it takes a minute for our eyes to adjust. So just giving yourself a minute to let your eyes adjust and then moving forward, because otherwise it can make our balance more difficult to adjust. So this picture, this gentleman looks like he's reading a good newspaper. He looks very comfy. However, I don't love all of the stuff in his way. So if he had to go up or get up and answer the door, get up and use the bathroom, things like that, there's a lot of fall hazards, including, I don't know what he's putting his feet on, and all of the magazines on the side. And I even see a cord to the lamp off to what would be his right hand side. So that screams fall hazard to me. Again, eliminate clutter as best as you can. Again, trying to especially get it off the floor. Eliminate or firmly tack down scatter rugs or throw rugs. So I know they're nice to have and I know they're beautiful, but if you're going to have them, please make sure you have, you know, definite as like things that stick to the floor. So that way, if you do step on them, you know, and if you're on a like a hardwood floor or tile floor, things like that, if you step on them, that they're not going to slip, because if they're slipping, you're likely slipping. Okay. Make sure all electrical cords are out of the way. Put away items as soon as you are finished with them, such as magazines, sewing supplies, and wipe up spills as soon as they happen. Don't move furniture that does not pose a threat. Okay. You know, don't need to be moving around all your furniture. People can have a cognitive map and can maneuver in a familiar environment. Again, you're used to your home, you're used to those things. So we're not saying get rid of all your furniture, all of those things, and don't rearrange furniture unless absolutely necessary, unless there's something that definitely could pose a threat, a fall hazard. Other modifications would be installing handrails on the stairs, grab bars near toilets and bathtubs, non-skid strips or mats in the bathtubs and showers. Again, we think about the shower base and water. It can be definitely slippery. Consider bed rails. Those are great options. And then keep frequently used items and cabinets easily reached, like we were talking about before. If, you know, let's try to think about how we can modify our home to, I mean, and just in general, we want to make we want to make those things easy. It shouldn't be a chore to be able to, you know, have to make your regular dinner, you know, so I don't want you having to reach for the pans that you most commonly use. Like, let's try to think about keeping those most accessible for you. Outdoors, repairing any holes or uneven joints on sidewalks. And granted, I know that's not always like your job, you know, whether that can be contacting the city or the town that you live in, because that is really important. I mean, and that, we see that so often, that sidewalks are very uneven and different things, and just making, and definitely being aware of those spots too. Make sure outside lighting is working especially in entryways and walkways. Check that handrails are securely fastened, and ideally that both sides of the stairs have handrails. Put away the hoses and garden tools when not in use. Again, hoses can, especially if they're out, you know, stretched out, they can blend right in with the grass. So, and then all of a sudden we're tripping over them, and, you know, it can happen. And arrange to have leaves, snow, and ice removed from the stairs and walkways. And just using anything that we can do to help kind of melt the ice and salt or sand during the winter months. So with all that being said, I know that was a lot thrown at you, but falls certainly are not a fun thing to think about. They're not a fun thing to go through if you've been, you know, if you've fallen before. Our job is, we want to keep people and I mean this, as independent as possible, but being safe. Their falls are not inevitable. Just because we're aging doesn't mean that automatically, oh yeah, we're definitely going to fall, and that's just part of it, and all those things. And by making simple changes at home, you can make a difference. So I think that is it for my part of the presentation. I don't know what time we're at, but I don't know if there's questions or things like that.
Hi, Maria. Yeah, we do have some questions. Thanks so much. That was a great presentation. If you're able to, yeah, you could stop your screen sharing there. Well,
let me see. I'm just trying. I can't quite hear you.
How about now? Can you hear me?
I'm just going to see if I can turn up the volume on my computer.
Okay. How about now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I heard you a little bit, but it's very quiet.
Okay. I'll try to talk really loud.
Okay, that's good. I can hear.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed just such practical information, and especially just, I love the way you began and ended with saying that falls are not normal, not a normal part of the aging process. So that's, I think, point A for folks to understand. We have to do all we can to prevent this, and you did great practical advice. So thank you so much. A couple of the questions we had, when I do fall, what's the best way to get up?
Oh, that's a loaded question. That's a good one. So there's definitely, I mean, always making sure first assessing that you're not injured. I mean, really, taking a minute, trying not to rush, again, just like everything else. We also always encourage people, if possible, either having a cell phone on them, with them, or a life alert, something just in case if you fall and you can't, either you're injured and you can't get up, to be able to call. Then I always recommend people, if they're at least near somewhere, to be able to crawl towards a piece of stable furniture is usually the best. And then trying to, I wish I could demo it. If we were live, I would demo it for you. But to be able to try to kind of almost get, if you can get onto your hands and knees to crawl somewhere, or even onto your side, and then being able to use your arms on that stable surface to kind of help pull you, and then use your legs to push through the ground. I mean, really getting towards something stable would be the best. Or I've had people, if they can't get up, crawl towards their phone and try to reach that, and getting help. Yeah,
good advice. And there was a similar question. If there is the care partner is there, any advice for them in helping their loved one get up?
For sure. It's always well-intentioned, for sure, to just pull someone up. However, oftentimes then we see two people injured instead of one. So I would still recommend, if you need that much assist from your care partner or caregiver, things like that, I would still recommend crawling, getting to a stable piece of furniture. I mean, you can, I really don't love always having people help if they need a lot of assist, just because, again, what I see is then the caregiver also, or partner or spouse also gets injured. And then we have two people on the ground. And so it's a double-edged sword. Certainly, I'd love to say, oh yeah, just throw them up and get them off the floor. But keeping everyone safe is important.
Right. And I think you touched on freezing with a mobility device, but what if somebody has tips for helping with freezing when going through doorways if I don't have a walker or cane?
Sure. Yeah, the thing that I found, at least, that works the best for my patients that have dealt with freezing is, again, when you're in that freezing episode, it's just typically people just want to keep going, and they're frustrated because they're like, okay, I'm moving, and then all of a sudden I get this freezing pattern, and I know where I want to be going. So I usually work with people to say, okay, I just want you to stop, take a minute. And that's where I usually start to have people just do, and I say march, but just little tiny leg lifts in place, or stepping in place, if you can, to get your body, essentially that, sends a signal to your brain to get your gait pattern flowing again, and then start walking. Yeah. That for me has been usually the most effective. Do you have counting? Yeah. I'm just talking with Kristen too, to see how she does. Sure. Yeah, and she had said too, even stopping and counting can help, or try. I mean, she mentioned like an elevator, like people, we feel rushed, like, oh, we have to get into that elevator, and just saying, okay, let that elevator close. Again, there will be another one. Right. Just like, people can wait when they're at the door, things like that. Gathering yourself and then starting again. Yeah.
I think that was another common theme you had throughout your presentation that was so important is just slow down, right? In all areas of our lives, we just feel like we have to do things quickly. Yes. and just getting past that and just slowing down just overall is so important. Good advice.
Absolutely.
You mentioned a lot of things at home in the rooms that could cause great hazards. What are maybe the top two that you would have people focus on first?
Yeah, throw rugs, as much as I throw shade on throw rugs. I mean, I love throw rugs too, but it is so common that we see issues with throw rugs. And then, I mean, I would say for what I see is either poor lighting, is people are just, again, they're used to their home, so they don't turn on, they have a lamp, but they don't turn it on. And then the problem is then they don't see the pile that they put there when they were reading the newspaper before,
Right.
or things like that. That's, those usually are what I see the most.
Yeah, those are great. Yeah, and then you had mentioned in one, we don't often think about pets, right? They're always underfoot, and people have to, they provide us with great comfort and company, but just got to use them smart and be careful around them.
Right. And that's where, again, making those, I mean, if we're just, instead of being, and again, we live in a society where we feel like everything needs to be so rushed and we have to be going and all those things. And with pets, because they just kind of, I mean, at least my dog, she doesn't listen to me, so she just goes wherever. So just making, instead of anticipating her movements, because I can't anticipate them, letting her, go do her thing, and then, taking a minute, and then myself moving, instead of, again, rushing.
Yeah. Here's kind of a very basic one. How do you define a fall?
Well, I guess I've never thought of that.
I mean, probably a true definition would be like if you're on the ground.
Yeah.
Landing the ground, but you can, I mean, tripping and stuff like that.
Right.
So then, lead to.
Right. Yeah. For sure. So Kristen and I, again, we're just talking. Probably a true definition would be landing on the ground, so our knee touches the ground or something like that. However, when we talk about fall prevention, I should say we want to talk about trip prevention, because tripping or, even changes in gait pattern, anything like that, because of environmental factors or, things like that, can lead to falls. So our goal is to prevent people from falling, certainly, but also working on walking and preventing trips, slips, all of those type of things.
Yeah. And I think maybe that was a question from a care partner whose loved one is saying, no, I didn't fall, I just stumbled, I just tripped, something like that. That might be the genesis of that question.
Yeah,
so
for sure. No, and that's true, because oftentimes I'll ask people, well, have you fallen? Well, not exactly a fall.
Right. Final question, that first visit, somebody comes in, and specifically somebody with who has Parkinson's. What are some of the key questions you're asking them on their first visit with you?
For sure. So our biggest thing is, yes, it's a patient that has Parkinson's disease, but I want to get to know you, and what does your environment look like? What are you having difficulties with? It's because there's such a wide range of things that, and where people are at, and what their goals are. I mean, are they having falls, or do they want to be more active? Do they want to do, different specific activities at home that they're having trouble with? So really honing in on, the specific person and what makes, what goals that they have, what are they having trouble with at home? Not just, oh, you're a patient that has Parkinson's disease, so this is everything that we're going to do. I mean, that's not, we don't like to treat that way. You're a specific person and you have individual goals and needs. So asking about your home setup, what are you having trouble with? And then working on either specific exercises or trying to replicate, getting in and out of the car, getting in and out of bed as much as we can to make that easier for your life. Yeah.
Great advice, and sort of ties into Daisy's comments as well, as what does independence mean to you, right? And
absolutely.
So wise counsel. Thank you, Maria, so much. Appreciate the advice you've given everybody here and the time you've given.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much.